morning, everyone in the world of Facebook and YouTube and IG. We have an incredible show today. Mother daughter warrior team here, Jammie and Danielle, or otherwise known as Dani. And they will share their story of probably one of the rarest forms of cancer to get. And it's ovarian cancer. It's actually germcell ovarian cancer. And to give you guys an idea of how rare this is only 2 to 3% of all ovarian cancers. So it's extremely rare. So without further ado, Jammie, Dani, welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Hello, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're good. How you doing?
Good, 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 good. It's a good Saturday, and can't complain. Sun is up. We are alive and kicking. So let's get into this a little bit. So Dani, talk to me a little bit about your journey, about what made you or what changed, right? Let's go to the beginning. Like as you were growing up and then something happened, what made you think something was going on or something was different?
Mm, I guess when I started to notice like a weird sensation in my stomach when I would lay down,
Mm.
um, and I started to notice like a lump. And at first, I wasn't really completely sure what it was until the lump started to kind of, I guess you could say, form. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I knew like something isn't right, and that's when I knew it was time to tell my mom that I've been having like this weird feeling.
Oh, so Dani, talk to me about that. So you didn't want to tell your mom. So you were trying to figure this out on your own. How long? How long were you trying to figure this out on your own?
Uh, Probably like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. Because at first I wasn't completely sure what it was or what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't start off with the lump. It started off with kind of like a pain.
Mm.
And at first I thought, oh, maybe it's just like I'm getting cramps. Like that's nothing, you know? And then
Mm-hmm.
when I started to notice I had a lump forming, that's when I was like, okay, I have to tell my mom because this doesn't seem normal.
Yeah. So really looking back, you probably were having a sharp pain somewhere in your stomach, right? And you were just probably pushing your hand into your stomach trying to make it feel better, right? Because you think it's a cramp or whatever it is. And then eventually you start pushing your hand into your stomach and now you feel a lump. And that flag goes off right there. And then Jammie, so when Dani came to you, right, with hey mom, I have something in me. And what was your reaction to that?
Um well, at the time she was gonna need knee surgery, and she was getting ready to transition to high school freshman year. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe you're just nervous. And she plays basketball, so she had also had a game, and they were doing some stuff in the gym. So I thought, okay, either that or maybe you pulled a muscle or something during practice or stretching. So I thought it was something simple. And then
So oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, I just thought it was something simple. And then since it wasn't getting better, um, took her to urgent care. I thought maybe it's like a urinary tract infection or something. But everything was coming out negative.
Mm.
So to the point where we were told, okay, since it's not X, Y, and Z, we need to do some further analysis.
That's interesting. And when you hear that further analysis, right? I'm sure you're like, oh, right? You're like, hold on, what do you mean further analysis? Like,
Yeah.
talk me through that, right? So Jammie, talk me through what you were thinking as your daughter, was going through, it, and then you heard someone say, we need further analysis. What was your mindset at that point?
The last place your mind goes to is cancer.
Mm.
So, I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's fibroids or a cyst or just common things that, young ladies can get, that women can get. But, we were determined to figure out what was going on. So, but the last thing in my mind was she has a tumor.
And Danny, baseline the audience, right? So how we I just read, 2 to 3% is germicell ovarian cancer. What is that percentage within your age group? Do you know that percentage?
No.
How, okay, because I would imagine it's super rare for your age group to have this. You
So
know,
based on what Hopkins said, because we asked, how many children around her age come in a year, because we were curious, and they
Mhm.
told us they only get anywhere from 7 to 10 patients per year with this diagnosis.
Wow, 7 to 10 patients at her age per year.
Mm-hmm.
That is very low, especially for a big hospital like Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, so you go through these tests. Danny, how did you feel when they said, "Hey, Danny, like we got to do some testing, and we don't really know what this is"? What were you thinking?
Well, at first, when we went to urgent care, and the lady was telling me, she said, "Oh, I'm pretty sure it's just like a cyst, and it'll need to be surgically
Hmm.
removed." So obviously, I was thinking, okay, you know, that's gonna be another surgery on top of my knee surgery. And I wasn't thinking much of it. And then, I mean, nothing really went through my mind like cancer, it's a tumor. It was just it's a cyst. That's really all I was thinking that it was. I wasn't really thinking like it would be cancerous.
Hmm. And how did you both feel when they said, "Hey, it's cancer"?
Well, the doctor didn't even have to say it. Like she just looked at us and said, "Do you want to call somebody?" And I looked at her. I was like, "It's cancerous, isn't it?" And she was like, "Yeah."
Mm. And how did you feel in saying that? How did you feel in the moment?
Kind of like, I guess you could say like, I was obviously sad because
Hmm.
nobody wants cancer. And my
Hmm.
friend had just passed away from cancer. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
like in shock that it was happening to me after I just lost my friend.
Wow. So it was fresh. I mean, in your head, if you just lost a friend to cancer and then they tell you have cancer, I'm sure there was a lot of probably some form of you being a little bit devastated, saying like, "Oh no," right? And then Jamie, how did you feel when they said, "Hey, Jamie, you're this is cancerous"?
I felt like the soul got sucked out of me. I mean, that's the last thing you want to hear about your child. Your world gets flipped upside down.
Yeah.
Um, but we stayed positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely stay positive. I mean, it's not news you want to hear ever. Um,
Hmm.
but I think because of the experience we had just had, it gave us a different amount of strength and a different
Hmm.
understanding and a different perspective,
Hmm.
um, on how to handle the situation.
And the one thing that I really admired uh, of you guys was your courage to share your story as Danny. You were going through this, right? I mean, you guys put this full out on Facebook and on all other media, social media outlets. I would imagine as well. And talking about that, what made you want to do that?
Well, I told Danny, I'm like, we're gonna start a journey. I said either we could share it or we could just keep it to ourselves. And I just explained to her, I'm like, I think it's gonna be important that we get some prayers. I said, but we can't get prayers unless people know, what's going on. So we
Mhm.
talked about it, and she said that was fine, and that's when we decided let's share it. because maybe there's a purpose. There has to be a purpose to it. And I said, we're not sure what that purpose is as of yet. I'm like, but obviously, God chose us to go on this journey for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it just reinforced as to why we should share it, and why we should put it out there. Not only for the support, but to help raise awareness, because here I thought my daughter had like a UTI or a muscle cramp. And it turns out to be a rare form of ovarian cancer,
Mm-hmm.
especially for her age, and I wish I had the knowledge and I wish I had the education as to what I should have been looking for, because after the experience, I realized there were some signs. There were some indicators there that I probably should have taken her to get checked. But because I wasn't aware, because I didn't have that knowledge, I didn't think much about it.
And you know what? You mentioned something real key here, right? Now that I'm aware, now that I have more knowledge, right? I immediately see the indicators of what I should have reacted to, right? And I would say, Jamie, to the audience, listening and watching this, whether it's live or they're watching the recorded version, what were those indicators? I mean, what were the indicators that you're like, oh man, like this, I should have reacted faster? What indicators was Danny showing?
So hers, it actually would have started with her menstrual cycle. She was getting heavier cramping, more frequent cramping. Her cycles were changing. They were getting, like I said, a little heavier. And she had mentioned one time to me, she's like, Mom, I feel like something's like going up and down in my stomach when I'm
Mm-hmm.
breathing. And I'm here thinking, muscle cramp or something like that. Um, and come to find out, the tumor was actually growing inside of one of her ovaries.
Mm-hmm.
And it was growing fairly quickly. So what she was feeling was that growth. Um,
Mm.
and what we thought at first it was something small turned out to be a pound and a half tumor.
Wow, a
So
pound
yeah,
and a half
a,
tumor.
a pound and a half tumor. So that's why I got to the point that if she would lay on her back, you could actually see a little lump,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it was growing pretty fast. So what we
Wow.
thought would like be a simple surgery, turned out to be, you know, the only way I can compare it to is like her having a C-section. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so she has like a C-section incision, and they had to
Mm-hmm.
do that because they had to remove the ovary since it was growing inside of the ovary. They had to remove it as a whole, but in a way, it was almost like a blessing because her ovary almost served like a sac to maintain it in there,
To
maintain the
contain it.
tumor and the cancerous cells in there.
Wow. And Danny, how did you feel, right? Going through this process as you got diagnosed. I'm sure that looking back, you probably see a lot more signs of where you should have reacted quicker as well, right?
Yeah, I definitely think I could have said something sooner. Um, but I think I was just afraid to say something because I wasn't quite sure what it was, and I didn't really want my mom to worry because
Mm-hmm.
I was here thinking, ovarian cancer signs, it's not something, I guess, how do I say it? It's not something that's like, oh, this is definitely a symptom. Like nobody's gonna think that. And obviously I didn't. So I was sitting here thinking, like my mom said, maybe cramps or, maybe I'm just nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think if I could go back, I would have probably said something sooner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm, and this is a normal human reaction, right, Danny? Like anytime someone feels something or someone feels that their health is a little bit off, they're scared. I mean, point blank. I mean, people get scared, and there are points where people don't even want to address it, and then it becomes a lot worse and worse and worse, and I can relate to that. I mean, easily I can relate to that. Um, yeah, I think that as as you reflect and now that you're trying to create awareness around such a rare condition, especially a rare condition around your age group, right? If it's already rare, it's even more rare, right? You said 7 to 10 patients a year go to Hopkins for this, right? That's a big system for only 7 to 10 patients a year for this to be there. Now, take us through. You got the surgery, and then what were you thinking as you were preparing for the surgery? And what was going through your head at that point?
I just thought, I'm gonna get the surgery. They're gonna take out the what we thought was a cyst, um, and I'd be good. I'd, get my knee surgery, and I'd be good to go back to school. And I wasn't really thinking much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I was scared because I had never had surgery before.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, at the same time, I was like, okay, it's just a cyst. It's not anything major. They're gonna get it out, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Then they get it out. It's cancerous, and then you go into chemo, right? Then they're like, hey, you need to now go into this next step, this next phase of the treatment. And how did you feel when when you heard that?
Um, they told us at first it wasn't.
So what happened was when they found the tumor, um, it was immediately, she needs to get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And her doctor was amazing, reacted very quickly. Once she found the tumor, within a couple of weeks, we were in surgery. Um, so they thought it was just, a small tumor that could easily be removed. So once it was removed, the doctor told us that there was a couple of things that she wasn't happy with in reference to how it looked. So they sent it out for just like preliminary testing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the tumor is, it's like layer upon layer upon layer. So the initial layers that were tested came back benign, meaning that it wasn't cancerous. It was just like it was a tumor.
Mm-hmm.
But there, it's customary for them to send it out for additional testing. So initially, they had told us, okay, within 2 weeks we'll have the final results. 2 weeks came and went, and we still didn't have results. 3 weeks came and went, and we still didn't have results. Then she was due for a follow up from surgery. So on the fourth week, we went, and that's when they sat us down, and they're like, the reason it took this long was because it had to get tested multiple times to make 100% sure this is what it is. And in her case, she had what they call a yolk sac in the center of the tumor, and that's just automatic, cancer.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things that feels extremely lonely when you're actually waiting for results. And when you start thinking, if you don't think about it, it's good, but every so often your mind drifts into thinking about something like that. And automatically, right? When it comes to like the doctor's offices and tests, the longer they take, they're verifying something, and the longer they take, the longer they don't communicate, for a patient and the caregivers, that's it can be a little bit nerve
Stressful.
wracking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be stressful because you're thinking, oh, everything's fine. We'll have an answer in 2 weeks, but you kind of
Mm-hmm.
start getting that feeling of, okay, yeah, something's not right because it's taking a little too long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then they confirmed that it's cancer, and then I'd imagine then they said, okay, we got to also do chemo, right?
Yeah.
And I know when you guys were documenting your journey, Danny, on Facebook and different outlets, I thought it was really cool to see your mom actually shave her head. And even I thought that was a pretty neat thing that happened. I thought it was an incredible gesture as well. And how did you feel going through chemo? How did you feel, as that part of your journey started taking off after you got the tumor out?
Mm, when I started chemo, I guess I really tried to like just stay positive, um, just to kind of keep my mindset off that. The fact that I have cancer and I'm going through treatment.
Hmm.
Um, there were some points where I was just like kind of still in shock, um, because I would have never, expected, I guess, having cancer.
Hmm.
Um, but it kind of, at the same time, I felt like it gave me kind of a look of what my friend had gone through when she
Hmm.
had cancer and how it was for her. And it made me realize that it's hard having
Yeah.
cancer. It's, it's not something anybody wants. Obviously, nobody wants to get diagnosed with cancer, go through treatment. But
Hmm.
through the whole process, I tried to stay positive, and I had the support of my family and my mom by my side. And I think that did help me keep that positive mindset. There were times where I was just like, tired, and I would feel like giving up sometimes, where I was like, it could be worse. It could have been way worse.
And you know what, Danny, that mindset goes a long way. To be honest with you, right? Especially when you're going through different conditions as you get older, and I think that mindset of it could be worse. Having that positive attitude goes a very long way now. Um, you know, the one thing that I'm curious about is, you know, for the audience, kind of lay out what that room looked like, right? I mean, I'd imagine you were probably one of the youngest ones there, or you tell me, right? Like, I'm curious as to when you went to get chemo, talk a little bit about that. What did the room look like? What was, the demographic of the room? Because I'm sure I'm curious. I'm sure other people in the audience would be curious as well.
Mm, I don't know how to explain
It
it.
was, uh, it's a hospital room, Unfortunately, you don't realize how many children have this condition until you see it firsthand. It's very humbling. Um, because we were in the pediatric section
Okay.
and we saw children as young as 2 months old with this disease. So when Danny says it could be worse, yeah, because it could be worse, a lot worse.
And she saw it,
Um,
right?
so there's children with different forms of cancer. They range from, as like I said, as young as 2 months. We met a young lady who was born with it.
Mm.
Um, she didn't have as many teenagers, so there was definitely a lot of younger children. But the staff there, the nurses there were amazing, and we try to keep normal as much as possible. Whatever
Hmm.
chance we had to get out of the hospital bedroom, we got out. They had a teen room, so we would go in there. That's where she started doing the puzzles again, and we just try to maintain some kind of routine, some kind of normal, to steer away from we're here for treatment, so they definitely helped with that. The staff was very attentive and making sure she had activities to do, and,
Hmm.
you know, whether it was coloring, painting, making something, she tried to do something every day.
Hmm.
So, and we had a lot of, family, friends, coworkers who also gave us, so many care packages with different activities for her to do. Um, so it wasn't the thought we have to stay in the hospital and we're just going to stay in this room. It was more of we need to get out of the room and get our mind off of this, so the time can go by and we're not sitting here just dwelling on she's here just for treatment.
Hmm. No, I think that's very powerful too. I think you're spot on, right? Trying to maintain a sense of normal, right? A sense of what a 14-year-old should be doing. And I think that I'm sure Danny helped you a lot. As you were going through this process. One thing that I'd be curious about is, you know, at what point in the process, or at, at certain points, I'd imagine you would probably feel a little bit lonely, not being able to connect with people uh, that have lived this, right, or that have gone through something like this at your age. That I'd imagine it's so rare that that's probably very difficult to do. Were there any points that where you kind of were a little bit frustrated around that, or were you because I know you're very positive, or were you just always that positive? I'm the the old girl in the room kind of person.
I mean, I tried to keep a positive mindset. Um, just because I feel like that's the type of person I am. Like, I'm a very outgoing person. Like, I'm positive. Um, yes, there were times where I was just very, like, down.
Hmm.
Um, sometimes I felt like I had no one really to talk to connect with, because nobody I know around my age was at the hospital. Um, nobody had my type of cancer.
Hmm.
So there were points where I was like, kind of not upset, but just like sad, because I felt I had no one to connect with
Hmm.
and to talk to about what I was going through.
Yeah, like someone that would
Because, like,
understand, right?
yeah, like I could talk to my parents about it, but it's not like they're going to really understand what I'm going through, because they're not really necessarily going through it as I am.
Yeah, no, I mean that's very understandable. Um, were there any times where you tried to attempt to connect with people? Did you ever ask, whether it was a hospital or trying to contact with an organization and said, hey, do you know anyone around my age that has this? Did you ever try to do that?
Um, I like my mom said, there was a young girl. She was, I think, 10,
12.
11. I think she was like 11 or 12, and she had been born with cancer. Um, I did talk to her. Um, we became we became friends, but I never really like talked to her about having cancer, if that makes sense. We just
Hmm.
talked because it was someone to talk to.
Hmm. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, at the end of the day, um, it's that human connection, right? It's just having someone you can talk to, whether it's about what you're going through or just a general conversation. I think goes a long way when you're going through something like this. Jamie, how did you feel? Were you able to connect with parents or other caregivers, around the cancer community, or how was that on your side of your journey?
Um, I just try to stay positive, and we're blessed to have a strong village, a strong community around us. Um, so we had so many people just checking in on us, family and friends, that it helped a lot. Especially her group of friends, her support group, which I think was huge.
Mhm.
And I will forever be grateful not only to her friends but to the parents of her friends. Because anytime I would make a phone call and say she's ready to hang out, watch a movie, they were here. They would drop what they were doing and they were here. So I think that helped keep a sense of normalcy for her, which was huge. because she was going to start her freshman year in high school. So that's she got to go to school for 2 weeks, and then unfortunately, we had to start treatment. So I'm sure that was like one of the hardest things for her, because she was planning on playing basketball and wanted to make new friends and wanted to see her friends. And it's freshman year, she's been waiting for freshman year. um so we thought that the best way to help to maintain that normalcy was to make sure that her friends were around and were surrounding her, and they did. Her friends were amazing, and the support group we had were amazing. And like I said, I'm grateful that she has the group of friends that she has, because I think that went a long way in
Oh,
helping
yeah.
her to stay positive, and they kept her motivated, and they still do. So they still, they're still around, and I tell her, to hold on to those values, and knowing, what true friendship is, because it makes a huge difference when you need them. So
Yeah, and Danny, I'd imagine, from your perspective, I'm sure that always uplifted you, right? That always gave you that like next ounce of strength, right? That to get you through what you were going through.
Yeah.
you could tell when she was sad and her friends would come over, it was like, oh, my friends are here.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, it's especially with something like this, there are times in health where it's year by year, and month by month, and week by week, and day by day. But I think with what your condition was, and you beat it, thank God. Um, is minute by minute, and you had a lot of good minutes, and you had bad minutes, and I think it's really minute by minute. Um, and I think when your friends were there, your village, if you will, I'm sure that those minutes were the best. You know, I would say, out of curiosity, what message would you have, right? 14-year-old Danny, what message would you have for the world around germ cell ovarian cancer, and how to help or support someone going through that journey?
I guess I don't know.
It's okay to share the journey, and it's okay to have support. We've met some people that didn't want to share their journey because they were angry, angry at the
Hmm.
world, angry at the disease, um,
Hmm.
afraid of how others would see them for having that
Hmm.
disease. But it's okay to share it and put it out there and have support. And like, because of that, we had an army behind her. We had people praying for her all around, sending messages, positive vibes, and everything. And it's important to have that, to keep that mindset, to keep that positive mindset. Um, so,
Yeah. I
and
think definitely keeping a positive mindset and having those who care about you around you, and just knowing, there's people here that are praying for me and that are caring for me, that it gets better in the end.
Hmm.
And I say definitely keeping a positive mindset will always get you through anything, like anything. Because if you're going to have a negative mindset, it's obviously going to be a negative outcome. But if you have a positive mindset, it's going to be a positive outcome.
Hmm. And you know what? In talking about that, right? I think you guys sharing your story also was a big outlet, a big release for you guys. Sharing the story with the world. Um, and I think that also probably did help in not being angry and things of that sort. I think you guys did an incredible job in documenting what Danny, what you went through, and even all the way to ringing the bell at the end. I'm sure that was a huge step for you as well. You know.
yeah, I think that's one of the things. Because unfortunately, cancer, it runs in my family. I lost my dad to it, and I wanted that experience to be different. I didn't want to have those negative memories. And that's what I
Hmm.
told her. I said, it's not a situation we want to be in, but it's important to have good memories out of it. And in order to do that, yes, it was very important to stay positive, and have that faith and that hope that we were going to make it through. And from the very beginning, she's like, "Mom, I'm going to be fine." And the fact that she started off that way and continued to stay that way, it made a huge difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that thought process, Danny, I think, um, like I said, I think that goes a long way, and it's going to go a real long way for you in your life with that thought process. Yeah, I would say, one thing that I'm also curious about is after you rang that bell, how did you feel? What were all those emotions? Talk to us a little bit about that. The end of the journey.
I was definitely happy that I was done. I was cancer free. Um, I feel like I can sort of ease my way back into my normal life again. Going back to school, uh, seeing my friends at school, hanging with my friends again in school, and I guess kind of feeling more normal.
Hmm.
I was happy, it was done, and that next year I'll be able to play basketball. Um, this year I'm the team manager because unfortunately I can't play, but they let me become the team manager. So I'll be watching what they do this year, and hopefully next year I'll make the team.
That's awesome. And Jamie, what were your sentiments? As Danny rang that bell, and you're coming, you're closing this part of the chapter.
It's an amazing feeling. Just thankful that she was able to overcome it, and beat it. So it's a great feeling. You know, but a lot of people ask me, they're like, "Oh, she's done, she's done, she's done," and it's funny because you don't think about it, but she's done with that journey, but the road continues. Because she still has follow up care. She still has to, get tested. For example, we'll have to go back like once a month, and then once every 3 months, and then once every 6 months. So it's still important, that if you have members or friends that have gone through this and beat this, it's still important to have that support, um, and have those friends around you because the you still have a road ahead of you, you know. Um, but we definitely are faithful and know that she'll be fine. But it's still she still has to keep going back for tests, routine checkups, to make sure that she's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah,
And
and oh, go ahead, Danny.
oh, like even though, like she said, I'm done with that journey, I still feel in the back of my head, it could come back,
Hmm.
which is like I don't want to have that mindset, but at the same time, it's like I can't help wondering, like 10 years from now, it could come back.
Hmm. And I think that goes to what your mom kind of just was talking about, right? That road continues, right? Those daily, not daily, but your follow ups, whether it's biannually or annually, those become very critical because you're right. It can't come back. Um, I think that you guys have really documented your journey very, very well, and I really, really commend that. And I think Jamie in the audience hearing right that the road still continues. I think that's a very key point, right? Because it can come back. It and you need to maintain, right? A lot of it is okay. Now you've gone through the gauntlet. Now you got to maintain and make sure you don't have to go to that gauntlet again. I
Mhm.
think that becomes very important now as well. Yeah, I would say, you know, what Jamie, from your perspective, what would you tell other caregivers right now? In taking care of Danny, and I'm sure it goes like you said, a village, but from you being the mom, what is that message you would want every caregiver to know right now around this journey?
Around, I mean, we're people of much faith, and the best advice I was given was, if I'm gonna pray, why worry? If I'm gonna worry, why pray? And I can't do both.
Mm,
When I was given that piece of advice, I said, you know what? Absolutely right. I'm not gonna worry. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna stay positive. Um, Continue to put her in God's hands and continue to move forward. And that's what I did, and I think it helped a lot tremendously. Because every day I was like, okay, we got to be positive and we got to keep routine and we got to get our mind off things. I was harassing her all the time. You got to drink water. You got to eat. You got to take your vitamins. Um, but it was important. It was important in us moving forward. And because my biggest fear was, if she gets depressed or falls into a state of depression. So that was always my constant fear. But I think because of all the positivity we had around us and the strong support system we had, family, friends, and everybody just being there when we needed them. um like I said, it was very important. So for caregivers, if you need help, ask for help. If you have questions, ask questions. um and it's definitely important to share it. I think we've shown how important it is, to that sometimes you do need to share things, especially if you need that extra support. Because in a
mhm.
situation like this, we couldn't have done it alone. We needed our family and friends, and we came out, thank God, on the positive side of things. So
That's an incredible message. We're coming to the conclusion of our show today. What are the last words, Danny? What are the last words to conclude the show?
you can get cancers.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Mm. Okay. You can do it. Always be positive.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank everyone for joining us. Download our app. It's live because you're not alone. This is an incredible cancer warrior team. You can reach out to them on the app as well. One thing I will say is, Danny and Jamie, thank you for being on the show. I think this is a story that needs to just
Thank you for
continue to
having
move
us. We
forward.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. And don't stop sharing this story, Danny. I mean, you've gone through something, and they need to know. And they, meaning the world, needs to know, because there are people that are going through this right now that relate to what you went through, and you can help those people out. And I think that's really the key message.
Mm,
All right.
definitely.
All right, guys. Everyone, have a great rest of your Saturday. Thank you for joining our show. Adios.